A question in the middle.
Hello, Helen Barlow from Australia. Hi. Downton Abbey has been a huge success, the British series around the world. And last year here we had The Women on the Sixth Floor, the French film, talking about the difference in class. This is almost the revolution from the servant's point of view, would you say, Mr. Jacot? And Leah Seydoux, you're here with 2 films. Finally, we see you in a big movie all on your own. Not all on your own, as the star. How does that feel after doing so much work before?
Pardon, mais la question sur la révolution, c'était quoi?
Well, I'm sorry, what exactly was your question about the revolution, precisely?
Is this film seen from the servant's point of view, as Downton Abbey is to an extent in the other series, which has become a big success? It seems to be a kind of theme that's in many films at the moment, including The Women on the Sixth Floor. Upstairs, downstairs, a little bit, but not
oui.
Comedy.
Ah, yes.
Oui, je continue à penser que la lutte de
Yes,
classe existe. Ouais.
I do think that class struggle continues to exist and that it's a relevant topic as well. I don't know if this film is about class struggle, class against class, but yes, certainly that is touched upon.
Excusez-moi, est-ce que vous pouvez me redire la question?
Well, could you put the question to me again? I'm not quite sure I heard everything. Preferably speaking into a microphone if possible. I'm sorry, but it's not possible to interpret without the microphone being on.
Oui, donc, écoutez, je suis très heureuse d'être là pour 2 films.
Well, I'm very happy to be here for these 2 films. It's the very first time that I've been here. They're very different films. That was that, really. Which 2 films do you mean? The 2 films that are being screened here with you in them? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And she also wants to know. The lady's asking you how you feel. It's the first time that she sees you really in a major role in a major film. Maybe you could reply to that point. Well, yes, thank you very much. And, yes. Well, yes, I'm very proud. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you anyway, thank you. Question here on the other side. A question for Mr. Jacot. In 2011, we saw the end of a lot of empires, a lot of reigns, right across the Arab world, for example. To what extent has this atmosphere of the end of reigns, the end of an era, influenced you in making your film, the end of a reign? How is that relevant when we talk about your film? Well, yes, that in a sense is the very quintessence of the film. It's the subject matter of the film. It's not even about the influence of this. I mean, that's the real heart of the film. It all turns around at the end of a reign. And personally, I find that kind of end of reign something very positive and fascinating. And so it was exciting and fascinating for me from all kinds of aspects. A question on the right-hand side, right at the front. A question from Ms. Kruger. You look so gorgeous in the film with those wonderful dresses and the wonderful jewellery. And how did you feel in these fantastic dresses? Do you really feel even more womanly, even more feminine wearing these fantastic dresses? Well, there's always 2 sides to it in a sense. It's fantastic the very first time that you try them on, the corsets and so on, in the dress rehearsals. It's a real dream, not just for me as an actress, but for me as a woman as well. But it's always a bit tricky. I, in a sense, hate costume films where all you do is look at the production design and the dresses and the hair and all the rest of it. In a sense, you need to forget about that. And I had to forget about that in order to be able to act. In this film, it was very important to me as well to bear in mind this is the end of an era. And the costumes are gorgeous. But it's not the point in time when it was the real climax of that style, when women had ships in their high hairstyles. So you need to see the woman Marie Antoinette here, not just the queen, because it's a very personal impression of Marie Antoinette that we have here.
Nee, Entschuldigung, erst hier bitte. Ihre Frage.
Question from the other side.
Virginie from Brazil, and I would like to address the producer about the difficulties about doing a period film like this. Sofia Coppola's film, when she did, she talked a lot about the difficulties to film in Versailles and everything. I would like to know which difficulties you had.
Il n'y a pas eu beaucoup de difficultés, je pense, pour tourner le film à Versailles.
Well, it wasn't so hard to shoot in Versailles.
Il
Versailles doesn't
permet de
open up
tourner le lundi,
terribly
le
much.
jour
It
de
makes
fermeture.
gives you a chance to shoot on Monday when the castle is closed to visitors, and the other days you can shoot, but the general public is there, which makes it a bit tricky. But bearing that in mind, I think that the work that we did was to find settings in various castles around Paris, and that allowed us to have interior scenes that totally reflected the situation at Versailles. Of course, you can't forget about the Hall of Mirrors, because that's an absolute one-off, and Benoit did very well with his location scouting, because in these other castles you feel as if you're in Versailles. But quite a lot of it is shot in Versailles. We were there for more than a week, but we found links to other castles, as I said, around Paris, these marvellous chateaux, so there wasn't really a problem vis-à-vis Versailles. And as I have the floor, let me just say one thing. Something that I found really intriguing in this film. I bought the rights when Chantal Thomas' book was released in 2002, and what really fascinated me was Sidonie's role, the way in which the story is narrated through her. She's a kind of groupie of the Queen. She doesn't see the world crumbling around her. All of the people in this film focus on their everyday life, and I think that's something which affects all of us. We often have trouble becoming really aware of the way in which the world has been turned topsy-turvy, but you can even think about the wall falling, for example, all kinds of historical events. We often don't realize that the world has changed completely. So we have a costume drama here, and you can feel affected by that today as well. You can learn about today by looking at the past. That's what's striking, and I think that Gilles and Benoit's work is absolutely striking. It's very precise, it's very modern.
Ok. Pour les Brésil et Portugal, c'est les suivants.
I have one question, if I may, to Jaco. There were two things which I found striking in your film. First of all, the people is made of an inflammable fabric, and the other was the people does not just want bread, they also want power. A colleague already touched on the question of Ben Ali and so on and so forth. When you started making this film, was there already a sense in the air that the Arab Spring would be coming along, or was it just completely by chance that you started working on a history which, in a sense, is reminiscent of Ben Ali's court, one might say, the Dauphin there as well, and the way in which his regime was overturned? Well, no, of course, there's very different perspectives here. There's different places, different situations. We talked about the end of reigns. All ends of reigns are similar in a way. There are leitmotifs that occur running through all of them. And in a sense, these phenomena necessarily hang together. It seems to be impossible to do any differently, no matter which ideology or social class you're looking at. The situation is going to unfold in the same way right at the very, very end of a reign, the very last days of total panic, because in a sense it's like a very high-speed shipwreck. Everyone's in a total panic. For millennia and millennia, these eras have had similar common traits, and it's interesting to look at those to identify them, just as we see here in the film. But we should remember too that as far as France was concerned, and indeed perhaps even Europe, those precise days are a point in time when everything pivoted in a very decisive fashion. And that's one of the crucial points in the history of Europe. From Agence France Presse, a question for the actresses. Benoît Jacot is often said to be a feminine filmmaker and a filmmaker of the feminine. Virginie Ledoyen, you know him well, but I wanted to ask the other actresses too, did you feel there was a particular presence of his camera, that you were filmed with a particular kind of tenderness, perhaps one might put it in those terms? Tenderness. Tenderness, that's a nice word. Well, yes, a tenderness and a love of actresses, certainly. But it's true that Benoît is certainly a director who's fantastic at directing young femininity. Well, yes. I think both Léa and Virginie would agree with me on this one. Yes, he sees women not just as objects, not just as beautiful beings. The role that he ascribes to women is very complex. He gives them striking, complex parts as well. That's unusual for a male director as well, to really get inside the psyche of a woman, to get inside her intimate being. So that's very striking. He's got a very clear, precise sense of that. Let me add something as well. There's something that's always very unsettling but very pleasant with Benoît. I've often said this, but I'll say it again. He films actresses very well, with a great deal of desire. But he also produces documentaries on actresses in a sense. He films the actress playing her role in her part. And I think that's what really gives a real corporality to his films and really puts flesh on the bones of his films. And I think it's wonderful to be directed by him.
Ja, hier vorne bitte. Ja.
Bonjour, Martin Bilodeau du Devoir à Montréal. En fait, dans la continuité de ce dont vous parlez.
Well, you're picking up on what you've just said, and Benoît Jacot, I'd like to hear a little bit from you about this. I was fascinated by the beauty of your actresses, the beauty of the characters too. I wonder about the role of beauty in your decision to choose these three actresses. Well, beauty is not so important unless you have the splendor of truth. I mean, that might be a little over the top. That was Plato who said that. Beauty is the splendor of the true. So a beautiful woman, as far as I'm concerned, is only beautiful if she is true. And what I hope that actresses will do over and above their beauty is that they will be true, that they will be authentic, and therefore that their beauty will be true. Because cinema is an instrument of truth. It's not an instrument of lies, contrary to what many might think, and that's very important to me.